Good afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in once again to another in our series, A Story to Tell. Today we have another important guest who will be sharing his journey with us. But before we begin, just to remind you, if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, to hit the notification bell below that you will get notified of all the videos that we publish, and also you can become a part of our WhatsApp family. The number will be published below. Today we have Demoy with us, and he's going to share his journey so far. How are you, Demoy?
I'm very well, Lestine. I'm in high spirits. God has been good.
Yes, we know we're in a difficult time now based on the COVID crisis, so most persons have been forced indoors by their government, respective governments. So we have to make do with what we have, and hence we are using Zoom to do this interview.
And it's, as you said, making use of the technology, appropriate technology.
That's correct.
Because of the difficulties, life goes on.
That's correct. So let's start off quickly. Tell us about your earlier years. I don't think you were born in Kingston. Tell us about where you were born and your family setting.
Well, I'm from a little district that is called Maida.
Mm-hmm.
It is in St. Anne. So I was born at the Alexandra Hospital in St. Anne. That's about 8 kilometers southwest of Brownstown.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in Alexandra Hospital, and then for a little while, my parents moved to Brownstown for a short time because my father was working in Runnerby at the time, and public transportation was not as we know it to be today.
Yes.
So we had moved there, and then after he acquired some form of transportation, at the time it was a bike, a motorcycle. We then moved back to where he had property, or his parents had property.
So you had brothers and sisters, or you're the first one, or the only child, or what?
In fact, my parents, who got married at age 19, 20 thereabout, have it's four of us. So I'm the second of four. And the one that followed me died very early from a similar disease that affect the respiratory system, like the COVID-19. At that time in 1995, there was a swine flu that was going around, and we fell a casualty to it. I have a little sister, so living now it's my brother and my sisters, four of us.
Okay, so how was life in the country back in those days? What age you actually started school?
Well, I started first I used to attend Brownstown Infant School, and I moved back to when we moved back up into the hills. I used to attend Clydesdale Primary Infant School. Well, a couple of things. I went also to Bennisfield Infant School. That was where I graduated from. None of that school, Bennisfield Infant School, primary basic school rather, is not in existence anymore. But that's where my early education started. Then I went to Clydesdale Primary School.
So your parents, like your mom, back in those days, most of the mothers hardly went out to work, and the father would go into the fields and the farming in rural communities. Is that the case for you?
Somewhat, with a little variation. So my mother is a full-time, always been a full-time, house technician. They use as the modern term, but back then was housewife. And my father, who has always been a practicing farmer, also worked in the hospitality industry. At the time when I was born, he was used to work at it is now Jewelry Runner Bay Hotel, but then it was Jamaica. Then it became Breezes Runner Bay. He worked there for about 10 years.
Okay, so he did a little bit of farming and also in the hotel industry.
Yes.
Okay, so like a typical day for you when you were getting up to go to school, you had to do some farming first and then you get ready for school?
So I can recall it could could be about at the age of 5, which was normative in the country at that time. Was a norm for boys to be given a goat for their birthday present. So from about 6, my early memory, 6, 7, I had 2 goats,
Mhm.
and it was a part of your routine in the morning to wake up very early, sometime after 6 o'clock or even before, to take the animals to get the grass while the dew, because back then we didn't practice to give goats water. But so we had to carry the goats to the grass to when the dew is on it, so they could, at least get the water there. So
Mhm.
that was the routine. You go and move the goats, you come back, you sweep the yard, etc., etc., and you get ready for school, and then you'd have to walk to school. School was like about 2 miles from the house, and you'd have to walk to the school, walk to and fro from school.
Explain to me a little bit about the goat and the water. Why is it that goats were not given water at that time?
No, in that is in my neck of the woods. As a practice in agriculture, today's bile is looking back. Then I saw the signs of them saying go early in the morning when the dew is on the water, and back then it was rainfall was very, it was more significant. Well done. No, because where I'm from, it is in the on the Jaraba Mountain, and
Yes.
before we had the backside companies coming and mine in the area, we used to have this large vegetation and loss. So rainfall was pretty, high. Levels were pretty high, and so goats, even though they are to be given water, which we do in a commercial setting now, based on carrying them to the grass that early, by them heating at that time, it somewhat suffice for the lack of water you would have to give them.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
It's a basically just a preference then.
Yes. Well, it's just a practice that they did not really know the science what they were doing, but it
Yeah,
worked.
yeah, it was making sense.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
And it's a community where that if you can appreciate the Jaraba Mountain, southwestern St. Anne, you don't have the luxury of pipe water. What you have is most houses are retrofitted with a concrete tank that is used to catch water from off the roof. Or you have in the district you have a large, what they call a district tank, that catches the water, and then you'll go to the tank for water. So water was not, as available like what you know it in the urban setting.
Yes, so you had to conserve and use
Yes,
it up wisely.
wisely. That's it.
Okay, so you're at your school now. What was the name of the infant school you said again?
So it was I graduated from Bennisfield Basic School, which is now defunct. It's no longer in existence.
Hmm.
And then I moved to Clydesdale Primary School.
Yes. At Clydesdale Primary School, what type of child would you say you were?
You know, if, I would say I was a smart kid, but then early in my time at Clydesdale Primary School, I met a serious accident. Met in a serious accident. It could be around about grade 2. I was in a bicycle accident, which I sustained serious injuries to my head, and I was out of school for maybe about a term and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. So I would say that I was pretty much a brilliant child in primary school, but also one that gave a lot of trouble. I was in a lot of fights. I remember clearly my father saying to me one day, if you're involved in any more fight, I'm going to send you to the next primary school, which was actually about 3 miles further from where we live. And I'd
Yeah.
have to walk. So I'd have to walk a good mile and a half to catch the other students who are walking from the other end of the district to there. And just by saying that, I can't recall being in any other fights, that's from about grade 4, you know. And at the same time, too, that's when I also got baptized as a Christian,
Hmm.
you know. Yeah.
So your family was is a Christian family that you grew up in, your mother and father?
Yes, I grew up to, well, my mother and father, but not the extended family. But I grew up to see my father and mother practicing Christians.
So tell us about the baptism. You said at 9. What would motivate a child at 9 to get baptized?
Well, so I remember very clearly. It was March 29, 1996. I got a dream. It was a Saturday night. All the elements of the dream, they're not clear now, but from what I can remember, is as if I was seeing very clearly a picture of a judgment scene, and this big ball of fire fell from the heavens and fell right on my lap in my sleep, and I just jumped out of my sleep. And I know I went to my, it's like I was seeing this somewhat of a supposedly Hamagedian, and I went to my father, and I told him that I want to get baptized. So this was coming in, this was now Sunday morning, and he gave his approval, the fact, I guess they are practicing Christian, but at the time, I was one of the youngest persons to have been baptized at the time at church. And when we went, the pastor, who is now deceased, Pastor Hira Gabidan, God bless his soul, at the time he was about 77 years old, and he too got a vision that a young boy, so before I told him anything, he said that in the morning, I think it was in closing of Sunday school, that he saw a young boy and an older man getting baptized today in his dream. And it was just as he said it, that there was another man who came to be baptized the day. So March 30, the two of us were baptized. Just like that.
So Pastor Gabidan got the vision beforehand.
Beforehand.
Okay, so you're now 9 and you're baptized. Are you really different from any other 9-year-old? You notice a change, you start doing things different?
Well, I don't think, well, an average 9-year-old. Well, I would say I was, active in Sunday school. At the time we used to have like Bible verses. We'd have like quarterly, we'd have like a recitation of Bible verse and so forth. But nothing more than a normal child. I wouldn't say I was any more religious than the average child that was born in a Christian home.
Tell us a little bit about the church that you were attending, pastored by Pastor Gabidan. How many members were in the church, and what was the church family like?
Well, it's a church that traces its roots to the early apostolic introduction into Jamaica. If you know the apostolic history well, you would appreciate that sometime around about 1918, the apostolic doctrine is alleged to have came to Brownstown. And with being a district close to Brownstown, just about, as I said, about 8 miles, 12, so call it roughly about 15 miles out, you can appreciate that the doctrine would have spread very quickly there, because that was a center of commerce for us, so people that to commute to there, So that church could have been started in the 40s. And a mix of old members who started the church and their children would have been the mid-age generation, and my generation would have made up the Sunday school. So pretty much you had about 4 generations existing in the one church. Could have been about 200, close to 200 persons. A very vibrant church indeed. It was one of the mainstay in the community and adjoining communities.
Mhm. So you had to go to church every Sunday. What about in the week? Do you had any activities in the week?
Church on Sunday mornings was mandatory. You didn't have a choice. Even when there's, at one point, I remember there used to be funerals on Sundays. We still have to go for Sunday school and then return home. Church Sunday night, church, you go to Bible study on that was a Wednesday, and then you go also on a Friday night for youth service. So at least, 3 times for the week, 4 times for the week, you'll be required to be in church.
Okay, so take us back to school now. So you're doing common entrance. You had common entrance exams back in those days, right?
Yes, so I was the last batch to sit the common entrance in 1998.
And
Yes, I think that's the year.
I get the strange feeling that you probably are the same age with me now. I don't want to discuss that on air, but I get
It
the
could be.
strange feeling that you're probably on the same year that you, which year were you born, Demoy?
Yeah, I was born 87.
Oh, okay. I'm a little older, but I guess the viewers will decide which one you are. Yes,
well, I'm the bald one, so I'm maybe older.
yes.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so you did a common entrance exam and you were successful.
Yes, I was successful, but somewhat disappointed.
Tell us more.
Um, so I passed the examination, the first sitting. I just turned 11 years old. So I could have repeated, 'cause you know, the common entrance is not like the GSAT or the new one, no, where you sit it once. You could sit the common entrance from age 9. I started at age 10. I passed for above not Gallimore High School, but it was not the school of choice for any aspiring brilliant student. If you know, for want of a better term,
Wanted to go to
Pe-
Faircourt or
no,
Teachfield.
people wanted to go to York Castle. You know,
York.
that was a school of choice.
Yeah.
And so I went to Arbuthnot, but it was indeed in the will of God. I have come to know that and appreciate that, you know? Yeah.
So how was life at Abotnot Gallimore? High school
Like
different than the primary school? Much?
life was rough initially because then we had the 2011 bombing of the Twin Towers, and then the hospitality industry went down and my father was made redundant. And it was a challenge financially to be sending two boys to school with subsistence farming being the main source of income. But that is when we saw God at his greatest, you know. I grew up in very humble beginnings. What when I look back now, I can, you know, say it was a poor upbringing. We didn't have basic amenities even at home. So it was a struggle for my father at that time without a job and my mother being a housewife. But then when I went to grade 8, I did so well in grade 7 that I was awarded a scholarship or a sponsorship by this company called Chicago Concern in Jamaica. Jamaicans or Jamaica, I'm not sure that of the last word now. And what they did was to provide funding for me from grade 8. Um, and you had to fit a certain profile. You had to be classified as a poor student. You know, you had to be financially, you had to be struggling.
Yes.
So I remember the interview with the teacher saw me, I did well. Teacher knew my father. I knew the hospitality industry had crashed. And she was asking me how many khaki suit you have. Do you have a pit latrine at home? Do you have an outside kitchen? That sort of. They were looking for somebody like that. And to be honest, I fit the profile. And so
Perfect.
they provided lunch money, they provided transportation to school, and because I continued to do well, that took me through my entire high school. So my parents didn't have to find a red cent for me until I left high school.
Yes. So you were afforded the scholarship and you maintained your grades and stuff to keep that true.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about leaving about that Gallimore. Upon leaving in Fort Fifth Farm, what was your career path that you had in mind at the time?
So pretty much I've always, you know, wanted to go into agriculture. Wanted to be a lawyer, but predominantly agriculture because maybe of the background from my father doing agriculture, practicing agriculture. And I was a little agricultural entrepreneur myself. I had my own pigs and goat from a young age. You know, remember selling my first pig in grade 7 for $7,500 at the time. So I was always a little farmer. Um, but my mother never wanted me to do agriculture. She came to school to stop me from doing agriculture. And when she spoke with the grade supervisor of grade 9 at the time, that's the time you would have specialized for grade 10. And the gentleman begged her to give me a chance to do agriculture, to not to follow the child's passion. I'm so glad that she allowed me, because I was also, insisting on doing it. And so I did agriculture. I never know what exactly in agriculture I wanted to do. To date, I still don't know what exactly, but I found myself working in several different fields in agriculture.
So you decided to go into agriculture, and with the help of that teacher, he convinced your mother and she allowed you to do that.
Yes.
So you moved on to case after that?
No, so there was some, and it is very important in my story that I share that it was not all bloom and gloom. It was not always rosy, for want of a term or a word. But I remember leaving high school and I was not, the CXCs that I did not pass all of them, which was a surprise. I still remember when I went to collect the result, the administrator at the school in the office said that this is one child CXC I want to see, one student CXC result I want to see. At the time, I had sat 6 CXCs and I only passed 3, which was a disappointment without passing English nor mathematics. So, so there, I couldn't, no college would have take me in with 3 CXCs. So I remember going to Brownstown Community College for 2 weeks and only for 2 weeks because I'd applied to go to Ebony Park Academy to do agriculture. And I got through and I went there. And it's from there now I applied because there was some sort of MOU between Ebony Park and Case along with my CXCs, and they have this exam called JSE. I
Yes.
remember, I was asked to surrender those when I went for the interview at Case and along with the Ebony Park certification. And believe it or not, it's after school that started an entire 2 weeks. I went into Case. That was the year of 2005, September. That's when I started College of Agriculture Science Education.
Okay. So tell us about the time at Ebony Park. What course of studies did you pursue there in terms of some of the in-depth courses?
So it was livestock production. So I had learned the art of caring for animals, name it poultry, cattle, pig rearing, etc. It was a very good experience, but it was also even though I grew up in poor bringing, we weren't exposed to laborious tasks. Life was not hard. And going to Ebony Park as a youngster, I was exposed to rough life. To get up in the mornings from after 5 o'clock and going out to feed the animals each morning. It was very rough. That was the mainstay there. That was the experience.
Yes. So did you get to stay on campus or you live at home and you're visiting?
So yes, so Ebony Park was in Clarendon. I stayed on campus. I would
Hmm.
only maybe go home maybe once per month or if there was a special event at church like Youth Week. I was youth president at the time as well, so I'd commute to assist with services there. Yeah.
Okay. So take us through the transition now. You're now at Case after that MOU between Ebony Park
Mm.
and said school. How was the experience being in this bigger college environment?
It was a shocker because when I told my mother I had got accepted for case, they weren't prepared. My father said to me that I would not be able to go because there is no money. Um, because he was still self-employed. He was operating a taxi at the time. And it was a small population in the community, so it wasn't turning any money to support somebody in college. Um, then I, my mother borrowed. I remember exactly she borrowed $26,000 at the time to send me to school. And when I went in school, I didn't have books like the average student. I didn't have any textbooks. I remember at college now, going to class, I was lost. I was in a class, started 2 weeks doing a diploma in agriculture. I was lost, no textbook, just had maybe about 2 or 3 notebooks. Most of the stuff I had to buy while being at college. And it was very rough. It was very rough. I had to depend solely on what came out of the pantry. I had little pocket money or anything of that sort. But then I was always involved in church. And so, I started, that's when the preaching ministry really started as well. And I started travel around the churches in Portland, and then the pastors knew of my plight, and many of them would assist with, when I preached, they would give me a little honorarium, which would be of great help in terms of sustenance. And then before the term was out, I learned about this program at college where I could work like it was, I think they call it the JAMVAT program, where I worked for about 40 hours, and I would receive a portion of my school fee. I think it's about 30% of my school. It was a government-run program, and I had subscribed to that. I did the hours, got some working experience, and from there, 200 hours, not 40, 200 hours you had to work. Yes. And so I went pretty much through the first year based on that. The other year, God miraculously provided my school fee, to be honest with you. It's each year, it was just miracles after miracles. I remember even the last year, I remember one year I could not pay my school fee and I'd have been blacklisted. And, somebody called me from Canada, and America, sorry, New Jersey to be exact. And the lady called me and she was sick, very sick. And she heard that, I was active in ministry, preaching and all of that. And she asked me to pray for her. And she called me next day just that she was healed. But God knew my plight, and the lady just decided what is it that she could do for me? And I was just telling her that, I owe X amount of money on my school fee, and the lady paid it. And that's why I went through my second year of college. Luckily, when I move on to the third year now to pursue the first degree in agri-production and food systems management, after completed the associate of science degree in general agriculture, I went to America to work for the summer. So I was able to pay my first year tuition. And I also became guild president, student council president. So even though I'd worked the money and wanted to pay my school fee, being student council president now, my college tuition was paid for fully, being the student council president, and also accommodation and the hall of residence was paid. And I'd have received a stipend of about $8,500 for every meeting I'd have gone to represent the students and the school board. So by this, my life had changed pretty much.
So you went to Case as pretty much an ordinary student and you left as an entrepreneur then with some savings intact.
Yes, I left. And this is where the story of my life took a twist. I was a part of the Jamaica 4-H clubs. And in my last year, I couldn't pay my tuition. It was the same. I found myself again in the same dilemma. And one day I was in my room on the hall, and I was praying to God in regards to my tuition. And funny enough, somebody threw a stone at the window and called me and said, Rev, because they used to call me pastor at college because I had a little church at college. I had about, believe it or not, I baptized about 30 people at college. So we had a vibrant church at college. So he said to me that the vice president wanted to talk to me. And little did I know it was an interview for a scholarship I didn't apply it for. And I received a scholarship to pay for that entire year at college. And even after I left college and was at home, wasn't working, I got a sizable sum of money because it was a part of the entire package. And it's through the Jamaica 4-H clubs I got my first real job as a parish development officer after, which is now parish manager for St. Catherine, to promote youth in agriculture in schools. That is how I got my first job.
So you got through with a scholarship for the final year that you did not apply for, and it also
And
took you through afterwards as well.
that is through that same medium I got the job.
My word. So how is it now? You're working, you're getting a steady paycheck. What do you do with your money?
So by this, because when I left college, I got married the same year. So I had family life, and pretty early, um, you know, we had a daughter. So we had to care for the child, so money right away had went in to start to so the job didn't came immediately after I left college because I'd have left college 2010 and I got the job 2011. This is after working for a brief stint of about 2 months at Registrar General's Department as a customer service representative. Yeah, so life changed after that parish manager job. I was able to care for my family, and yeah, and pretty shortly after we acquired a house, and then I moved on to work at the Ministry of Agriculture in a more senior post. That's another story in and of itself.
Yes, I wanted to get to that. I know that's a story in and of itself. I know that is probably a sizable portion of your adult life currently. Tell us about how you got through with that job at the Ministry of Agriculture.
So that job I became, without going through the nitty gritty, just to give you a summation. Um, that job I just got, to be honest with you, I think I outgrew the job at Jamaica Forage Clubs. Um, I felt as if my I didn't have the passion for what I was doing anymore. And I asked a church sister of mine at the time, and I want to name her, because that woman has been a blessing. Lorna Green. I asked her if she didn't know of any job that was, any job up by Ministry of Agriculture. And she saw this job. It was a superintendent of public gardens. It was a senior director post at the time.
So Miss Lorna Green told you about the job, senior director, and being so young, you were considering if you should apply.
Yes, because there was the feeling of inadequacy, you know, and she sent me the application. I applied. I didn't hear anything from them at all, to be honest with you. Didn't hear anything from them, but that did not dissuade me after I applied. When they called me some 3 months after the interview for the job, I went there and I saw about 3 persons I knew, and that increased the
Difficulty.
the range of difficulty I passed in the interview went up more significant, because then I said I three of the persons they taught me at school, two of them at Ebony Park and one at College of Agriculture. So I was saying that I had no chance of getting this job. So I was just there, just passing time. And when they called me for the job interview, I went inside. Luckily, these men were not there to sit the interview. They were the interviewers. So they were now interviewing one of their better students, what they would call a model student. And the rest was history. I got the job and I became then one of the youngest, in fact, maybe the youngest senior director at the time in the Ministry of Agriculture. And there I worked for 4 years before I was seconded to my present position now, my present position.
So you were at the ministry for 4 years. And
Yes.
what were some of the responsibilities that you have for those other persons who are not familiar with what you do?
Yes, so a part of my task was, or some of the activities and functions Was an administrative function. I used to manage directly about 35 persons. I manage about 7 different sites. All the botanical gardens in Jamaica, I managed them. I was in charge of the ministry conservational program for key plant species that were given to Jamaica under colonial rule and that were being kept in these gardens. So it was key plant genetic resources, that I was vested with the responsibility to protect and also to preserve and collect additional plant species. So it was quite a bit of work with some of the sites. The sites were all over the island. So on any given week, I'd be in St. Elizabeth, St. Thomas, Portland, etc., commuting to these sites. Notable, some of these sites, Castan Gardens, you might know of it, Oak Gardens. I was in charge of Fern Gully Avenue, Scenic Avenue, Alan Bambo Avenue. There was this one in Bath in St. Thomas, which is the second oldest botanical garden people might not know in the Western Hemisphere. Many of these were set up by Great Britain when we were under colonial rule. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, you manage the entire division. So I was in charge of an entire division. So I'd manage the entire budget, all the strategic objectives that's set by all of government. By government, I had to ensure that these objectives were met, whatever strategies I needed to implement to ensure that the targets that were set were maintained. It was a very good job, very good exposure, especially administrative wise, and exposure and exposure to what government at that level was like,
Yes. All right. So after working at the Ministry of Agriculture for 4 years, you eventually left. So what exactly are you doing currently?
So technically speaking, I have not fully left the job. I was seconded to the Cayman Islands, and now I'm working as a senior policy advisor in the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, Agriculture, and Lands. And this is a very important role in government here. And it's, to be honest with you, it's a lot of work, but I love it. It's a good job, for more than one reasons.
I can imagine. So basically, you'll be there like for a 2-3 year stint, and then you'll return.
So I have the option after 2 years to return to Jamaica to my substantive post, being superintendent of public gardens, or I need to resign and stay here in the event that they renew the contract. But it's a open contract, but it will be up to them if they want to renew the contract for another 2 years.
Okay, understood. Yeah. So taking it on a granular level of the persons at home, we know you have quite a number of experience in dealing with plants and gardens. Are there any tips or tricks that you could share with our viewers at home as to how to care and keep their garden looking fresh?
Yeah, so predominantly persons would say if you don't have a green thumb, you can't plant. I don't believe in the green thumb. I believe that there are basic principles, and if you use them, they work. So it all depends on the soil type you have, the medium that you're going to grow your seed or your plantlets in. And it's how you take care of the plants. Plants are like humans. They want care. They want to be fed. They want plant food. They want water. They want nutrients to survive. So if you have plants, whether it's a garden, a little space, ensure that you have fertile soil. And ensure that your soil is allowing air to pass through. So it's friable, it's loose, it's workable, and that you're providing water and you're providing nutrients, and and it should planting the right plants where, because you can have plants that require shade in the full blast of sun in City Kingston. They're not going to grow. And how do you know what plants are indoors? Most flowering plants that grow, their petals are bright, like a bougainvillea, the hibiscus, etc. These are grown outside, and your other plants, you grow them inside, like plants that don't flower, like your spathiphyllums, like your peace lily, those broad leaf, green leaves that we normally decorate your palms, etc. These like a more cool environment, with adequate shade, etc. So
The ones that you have in your background now.
it's a science. Yeah, it's a science. You know, it's a science. It's nothing that you just get up and all because it's luck. No, it's a science, and you practice the principles. I am not so much into plans now for work because I'm operating at a broader level in terms of policy. I'm overseeing all policy related matters in the sector and to prepare advice for the minister of agriculture. So now I'm spearheading the planning for agriculture. Long-term plans like a national agricultural plan, providing the strategy, doing the level of research to say what other jurisdictions are doing and what we need to do as a country to move agriculture forward, what you need to do to get a certain level of growth, advise on how you grow the sector, develop the sector, what you need to introduce in the sector to further develop the sector. So it's more of a planning it's a planning job, and it's a very 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 eye-opening job, you know.
Quick question. Do you see yourself probably being back in Jamaica in probably a post in government like the Minister of Agriculture? Have you ever thought about that?
No, I do not have any ambition for politics, and to become a minister you'll have to be at least a part of the political directorate. But I see myself at some time returning to Jamaica to work, certainly as a technocrat that I've been in my last couple of years. As to what post, I don't know, but if I believe all the jobs that I have operated in, even though I have applied, is the Lord really have directed me in those areas, including coming here to Cayman. So I see my life as one of design, and anywhere the good Lord so wishes for me to go, I will follow. I've learned to pull up the stumps and just go, where he leads.
Yes. Te- Tell us a little bit about, we know you had written a book some years back. Could you tell us a little bit about the inspiration about writing that book and give us an overview of what it's about so persons who are probably not familiar will know what you have been going on with?
So I became a author, and I wrote this book called Overcoming Our Giants, which is a simpler, practical outline of strategies to overcome the different challenges of our day-to-day life. That was really what the crux of the book, where I looked at the life of David and the giants that he fought, and I put them in different areas. So I looked at Goliath, and I used Goliath to depict the giants we face secularly, like at work, etc. And then I use Absalom, which indeed these are real giants in real life. Absalom, I use him to typify the giants we face in our families, our marriages, or with our children, etc. And I looked at Saul, who is a giant we face in our religious life or church life. And then I looked at David, the giant himself, and the challenges he faced, those provided by himself. So it is a very good book. It has sold over 1,000 copies so far. It still have a lot of potential. A lot of persons have called me to say that they have been blessed about the book. For me, it was never about the money writing the book, but it's about how many persons the book could have reached and my story could have helped them. I am currently, well, not necessarily writing, but I have 2 books in mind that I'm going to be working on shortly, of which I believe will be a blessing not only to the body of Christ, but the wider public, because they will be more so motivational material.
Mhm. So looking back over your life, what would you say it's the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome? What would be your giant that you had to defeat?
Well, one of the biggest giants I've fought is the giant of finance. That was the principal area of struggle for my family growing up. We were, in terms of money available, we were seriously hampered, and God has somewhat, miraculously moving from what was a two-room dwelling with a pit latrine outside and a little kitchen. Many persons can relate to that now in this time. But something that has moved where we have it's now back home. It's a good house. It's all the amenities are there, and it's long past what it was. And I'm seeing where I have stability financially in my personal life, and you know one of the challenges as well, and I can't speak to it much, but growing into an adult and marriage and all of that, those that came with its own challenge, and something constantly being worked on, and also self being one of the principal hindrance. I believe when one grows and achieved, like I would say that I have had some fair amount of achievement, having a master's degree, having traveled, quite a few places in the world. I've done several development courses. I'm a certified urban forester. A number of different things, project manager. I would say one of the real challenges to keep yourself flat is to be humble, is to be simple, you
And to
know.
remain grounded.
I remain grounded, and this is where God, comes in, where, and also your root, because it's the root that keeps the tree grounded, and it's because of my upbringing, my humble start in life, I believe has kept me grounded. And so that is why, being in Jamaica, justice of the peace, I became a justice of the peace to ensure that I am giving back service, yeoman service to the community, to the people. And also as I'm trained and certified mediator to assist as much as possible. And financially, even though I would not say any at all that I'm anywhere rich, but I have enough that I can survive during COVID. But also to ensure that I provide a little bursary annually to students who are studying tertiary. And I've never advertised it. I will not, because somehow the Lord always sends somebody needy. And even though it's not like I have money put away, but I've always made the sacrifice, just remembering where I am coming from and how hard it was to acquire tertiary level education, and to know that education is one of that principal vehicle, to bring you out of poverty. And of course, salvation, the purpose of God for your life, because it doesn't matter how much you'd have been educated, if God is not in the ship, I can tell you, you'll be lost.
We're coming to a close. This is one of our final questions. Looking back over your life, are there any regrets that you probably have now? Anything that you probably wish you had done differently?
For me, life is a college. Life is filled with the faculties of learning. And I honestly, I don't have any regrets. I have come to appreciate that experiences, they are vital, and as a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, that all things work together for my good, because I believe I'm the called and that He loves me. And so all that has happened in my life, at times, they have really hit me hard, and there are things that I have done per se that, you look at it and say, oh, if you had done that, it could have, worked that way. But I have learned to appreciate the experiences for what they are. And today they have contributed, one, to make me more grounded, and also make me a more mature person. And that is the real purpose of experience. It's to perfect you, it's to make you more mature. So I'm enjoying life, life with no regrets.
Yes.
What is in the past is to guide the future.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all this valuable information. Before you go, could you just give our viewers a word of encouragement? Probably there are some persons who have been placed by no fault of their own in a similar situation in their family setting based off where they are born and their financial situation. Any encouragement or advice that you can offer such a one?
So I'll provide the advice, you know, in this particular way. For the parents, I'm a parent and I have wonderful parents. I'll say to the parents, if you have a child, it doesn't matter how poor your your setting is, it doesn't matter how your life is or your situation. Be there for your children. Be the best parent you can. My mother and father, they did their best under the circumstances. And that was what was really required to move me where I'm at. Um, Work hard, work honest. Don't let your situation, don't let where you're coming from define where you're going. In fact, it should be the impetus, the motivation to move you to endless possibility. From coming from a very rural district and seeing myself in boardrooms and traveling to represent country and all over the place, whether it's in Beijing, etc. It was for me that living beyond your dream, because I'd never dreamt of anything like that. But it was simple having the foundation of good parents, working hard, being honest, love God, and stay true to friends and people support system, because you can't do it alone, you know. So get yourself in a place where you are surrounded by good friends and people who can motivate you, people who have seen where you want to go, so they can provide the guidance that you need to get there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us, Demoy. We really appreciate every word that you imparted to us. And I'm sure whatever you said, even one thing will be beneficial to someone today. Thank you for tuning in and joining us by this video.
Thank you for the opportunity to tell my story. There was a lot more I could have said, but I'm grateful for the little that I could have shared.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you, our viewers, for staying with us another time for another in our series of story to tell. Before you go, just to remind you again that you should subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not yet done so, hitting the notification bell below that you'll be notified of all the videos that we produce. And you can also become a part of our WhatsApp family, where you'll get news updates and other important information. So until next time, when we'll have another important guest with us, stay tuned and God bless you. Stay safe as well. Remember the guidelines of the government, the social distancing and all those. It's very important in this time. All right, so until we meet again, stay safe.
Once again. Once again.